We had some other recordings that we were working on. Actually, it was the live version of Coming Up.
We know Paul McCartney as a music icon, a Beatle, and a storyteller. But even the greatest storytellers leave things unsaid. His ex-wife has come forward with a truth Paul never wanted to share. His controlling behavior, his addiction, his jealousy, and much more. Is it a bombshell, a betrayal, or something far more human? Let's uncover the secret Paul tried to keep hidden. Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942, at Walton Hospital in Liverpool, England. His parents, Mary and Jim McCartney, shaped much of his early life. Jim sold cotton for a living, but loved music. He played the trumpet and piano in local jazz bands, filling their home with songs. As a boy, Paul became fascinated by music. He loved listening to his dad's jazz records and to rock and roll stars like Little Richard and Buddy Holly. These sounds made him dream of writing his own songs. But when Paul was 14, tragedy struck. His mother, Mary, died of breast cancer in 1956. This loss devastated Paul and changed his life forever. Music became his escape. Soon after, he wrote one of his first songs, "I Have Lost My Little Girl." Later in life, he admitted that her death inspired other songs like "Yesterday" and "Let It Be," where you can feel his pain and longing. Paul's life took another big turn in 1954 when he met George Harrison on a school bus. They both went to the Liverpool Institute, and even though George was younger, they became close friends. They bonded over their love for music, spending hours playing together. Around this time, Paul got his first guitar. He taught himself to play by copying songs from records. He practiced all the time, coming up with simple tunes that showed his growing talent. Then, in 1957, Paul met John Lennon at a church fete. John Lennon was performing with his band, the Quarrymen. They played skiffle music, a mix of folk and rock, and their performance had a lively energy. In the crowd was 15-year-old Paul McCartney, a boy who loved music as much as John did. He was drawn to the music and couldn't stop watching the band. After the performance, Paul was introduced to John by a mutual friend named Ivan Vaughan. This was the moment everything changed. Paul picked up a guitar, tuned it properly, and started playing. He performed a rock and roll song, 20 Flight Rock, with such confidence that John was impressed right away. John liked Paul's talent, but he also liked his personality. He could see that Paul would be a good match for the band. Not long after, John invited Paul to join the Quarrymen, and Paul said yes. From the start, John and Paul worked well together. They shared ideas, played music, and even began writing their own songs. Their first song together, "In Spite of All the Danger," was a small but special moment in their journey. The Quarrymen, which John had formed in 1956 with his school friends, started to change. The addition of Paul brought new energy, and the band's music began to improve. By 1960, the group decided it was time for a fresh start. They renamed themselves the Beatles and set out to make a name for themselves. They worked hard, performing in small clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg, Germany. These shows were long and tough, but they made the band stronger. Their performances became tighter, their music better, and their bond as a group even stronger. Everything changed in 1962 when they signed with EMI Records. Their first single, "Love Me Do," wasn't a huge hit, but got enough attention to climb to number 17 on the charts. This was just the beginning. Their next songs, "Please Please Me" and "She Loves You," turned them into stars almost overnight. People couldn't get enough of their music. In February 1964, the Beatles performed on The Ed Sullivan Show in the United States. Over 73 million people watched them that night, and suddenly, they were famous all over the world. This was the start of Beatlemania, with screaming fans and sold-out concerts everywhere they went. By now, John and Paul's songwriting partnership was unstoppable. Together, they wrote songs like A Hard Day's Night, Help, and Yesterday, which became instant classics. As their fame grew, the Beatles didn't just stick to what was safe. They started experimenting with their music. Albums like Rubber Soul and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band showed how creative they could be, using new sounds, instruments, and ideas. They weren't just making music, they were changing it. The Beatles became more than a band. They became a symbol of the 1960s, inspiring people with their style, creativity, and boldness. But as their music became more complex, their relationship started to crack. By 1968, while working on the White Album, the band members began arguing more often. Each of them wanted more control over their own work. John was drawn to his new creative partnership with Yoko Ono, while George was frustrated that his ideas weren't being taken seriously. Even Ringo left for a short time, feeling ignored by the others. In 1969, they managed to pull together one more masterpiece with Abbey Road. Despite their growing tensions, the album showed that they could still make magic as a group. Their final release, Let It Be, 1970, reflected the struggles within the band, but also gave fans unforgettable songs like Get Back. The end came in April 1970 when Paul McCartney announced he was leaving the band. After years of disagreements, personal conflicts, and the weight of their massive fame, the Beatles finally broke up. Fans around the world were heartbroken, but it was clear the band had run its course. Even though their time together ended, the Beatles' music never faded. Their songs and albums continue to inspire people all over the world. Decades later, their legacy remains as strong as ever. Every April 10th, fans celebrate Beatles Day, honoring the band that changed music forever. During all this, Paul McCartney met Linda Eastman on May 15, 1967, at the Bag O'Nail's nightclub in London. This was a vibrant place where famous musicians and celebrities often gathered during the swinging 60s. Linda, an American photographer, was in London working on a book about the music scene. That night, as their eyes met, something clicked. Paul later said he couldn't let her leave without speaking to her, so he stopped her for a quick chat. It was brief, but unforgettable. Even though they felt a connection, they didn't see each other again for almost a year. Paul was still engaged to actress Jane Asher, and Linda returned to the U.S. to take care of her young daughter, Heather. In July 1968, Paul's engagement ended, and later that year, he and Linda crossed paths again in New York City. This time, the timing was perfect. They reconnected, and Linda soon moved to London with Heather. Their relationship quickly grew into something special. Linda became a steady presence in Paul's life during a difficult period. The Beatles were falling apart, and the pressures of fame were taking a toll on Paul. Linda gave him the emotional support he needed. She became his safe haven, while everything else felt uncertain. On March 12, 1969, Paul and Linda got married. The ceremony was small and simple, held at Marylebone Town Hall in London. They wanted it to be private, but fans and reporters still gathered outside when word got out. After their marriage, Linda became deeply involved in Paul's music. In 1971, they formed a band together called Wings. The name came to Paul while he was waiting for Stella, their second child, to be born. Wings became a way for Paul to move forward after the Beatles, and it allowed him to keep his family close while exploring new musical styles. Linda, who had little musical experience, stepped into a bold role as part of the band. Wings became hugely successful in the 1970s with hits like Band on the Run and Live and Let Die. Even as the band's lineup changed, Paul and Linda remained its core. Touring together and making music brought them even closer. Linda's presence challenged stereotypes about women in rock bands, inspiring many to follow in her footsteps. Paul and Linda also focused on raising their 3 children, Mary, Stella, and James. The family shared a love for music, art, and animals. Linda became a passionate advocate for vegetarianism and animal rights, which led to the creation of their successful vegetarian food brand. When Linda was diagnosed with breast cancer, Paul stood by her through every moment. She passed away on April 17, 1998, at the age of 56. Her death was a heartbreaking loss for Paul and their family, but he continued to honor her legacy through music, vegetarian advocacy, and the work they started together. After Linda's death, Paul McCartney met Heather Mills on May 20, 1999, at the Pride of Britain Awards. The event was all about honoring brave people, but for Paul, it turned into a life-changing moment. He later said he felt an instant attraction to her. By July 1999, Paul and Heather were dating. They spent almost all their time together, and by September, they were practically inseparable. After 2 years of dating, they got engaged. On June 11, 2002, they had a grand wedding at Castle Leslie in Ireland. The location was special to Paul because his mother's family came from nearby County Monaghan. The ceremony was a big celebration with 300 guests, including Ringo Starr and other famous friends. Paul wrote a song called Heather for the occasion, making the day even more personal. It looked like the perfect start to a happy life together. In 2003, their happiness grew with the birth of their daughter, Beatrice Millie McCartney, on October 28th. Beatrice was named after Heather's mother and inspired by Paul's Aunt Millie. Her arrival brought joy to both parents. But as time went on, cracks started to show in their marriage. Heather reportedly struggled with being compared to Linda, whose presence remained strong in Paul's life. Friends noted that reminders of Linda were everywhere in their home, creating tension for Heather. Both Paul and Heather carried emotional baggage into the marriage, which made things even harder. Heather, who had lost her leg in a terrible accident as a child, often struggled with insecurities that stemmed from her past. Paul, on the other hand, was trying to balance his life as a music legend while understanding the challenges Heather faced. The couple even went to therapy to work through their issues, but the sessions seemed to create more problems than they solved. Heather accused Paul of not being supportive enough during tough times, while Paul felt frustrated by Heather's public image and what he believed was her desire for fame. Things got worse when details from their therapy sessions leaked to the press. Their private struggles became public, and the media attention only added more stress to their already strained relationship. All of this led to divorce. Mills shocked everyone when she asked for £125 million from McCartney's fortune. At the time, he was worth about £400 million, so her demand was nearly a third of everything he had. Many thought it was way too much, especially since their marriage had lasted just a few years. McCartney's lawyers argued back, offering £15.8 million instead, saying it was a fair amount. This massive difference in numbers led to an intense legal battle where both sides told very different stories. Mills claimed she had helped McCartney recover and rebuild his life after his first wife, Linda, passed away. McCartney's team said there was no proof of this and called her claims exaggerated. The case went to court in London and lasted 6 days. When the judge finally gave his decision in March 2008, it wasn't good news for Mills. The judge, Mr. Justice Bennett, didn't hold back, calling her evidence inconsistent and inaccurate, and even describing her as less than candid. He also said she wasn't a credible witness, stating that she was volatile and explosive, and often her own worst enemy. Mills, however, dismissed the judgment as outrageous in an interview with the BBC, clearly unhappy with how things had unfolded. One of the most shocking claims Mills made during the trial was that McCartney had abused alcohol and drugs and treated her abusively. She also said he was possessive and jealous, insensitive to her disability, and had colluded with the press against her after their separation. On top of this, she accused him of failing to protect her from the media's relentless attention. However, the judge rejected these accusations, calling them exaggerated and unsubstantiated. The judgment also revealed a counterclaim from McCartney's side, accusing Mills of bugging his phone calls. This included a conversation with his daughter Stella, during which Stella allegedly made unflattering remarks about Mills. The judge stated there was no evidence to back Mills's claim that McCartney had restricted her career or that she had played a significant role in his business. Her assertions that she rekindled McCartney's professional flame after Linda's death were dismissed as make-believe. In the end, Mills got £24.3 million, far less than what she wanted. This included a £16.5 million lump sum and £7.8 million in assets. McCartney was also ordered to pay £35,000 a year for their daughter Beatrice's care, including school fees and a nanny. While it was still a large amount of money, it was just 6% of McCartney's fortune, and many saw this as a win for him. The court drama also included one unforgettable moment when Mills poured a jug of water over McCartney's lawyer, Fiona Shackleton. Mills later recounted the incident, saying she approached Shackleton and declared, "I'm not a loser," before tipping the water over her. She claimed she was calm while doing it, and even joked about the act, calling it a baptism. The judgment painted McCartney in a much better light. The judge described him as balanced, consistent, accurate, and honest, even though he sometimes showed irritation during the proceedings, which the judge deemed justifiable. The decision to publish the judgment added another layer of controversy. Mills fought to keep it private, citing concerns about her daughter Beatrice's safety, but her appeal was denied. Paul McCartney's life took a significant turn when he married Nancy Shevell on October 9, 2011. It was a simple and intimate ceremony at Old Marylebone Town Hall in London, the same venue where he had married his first wife, Linda McCartney, back in 1969. The wedding itself was all about love and family. Nancy wore a simple white dress designed by Paul's daughter, Stella McCartney. Paul also wore a suit Stella made. Paul's youngest daughter, Beatrice, was the flower girl, and his son, James, gave a touching speech. Their marriage wasn't just about romance, it was also about bringing two families together. Since then, their relationship has been described as one built on mutual respect and shared passions. Even now, at 80, Paul McCartney is still going strong. His music career, which began with the Beatles in the 1960s, has lasted for over 6 decades. In 2020, during the pandemic, he released an album called McCartney 3. It reminded fans of his early music while showing he could still create something new. Paul also continues to perform live, drawing huge crowds. In February 2023, he surprised fans with a small Valentine's Day concert in New York City, proving he still loves connecting with his audience. Paul has won many awards for his music, including multiple Grammys and 2 inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once with the Beatles and once for his solo career. Songs like Yesterday, Hey Jude, and Let It Be are timeless classics that people of all ages still enjoy. He's also kept up with modern trends, working with younger artists like Billie Eilish and Kanye West, and sharing his music on social media. Family has always been important to Paul. He has 5 children: Heather, Mary, Stella, James, and Beatrice, and 8 grandchildren. His children have grown into successful adults. Stella is a famous fashion designer who focuses on sustainability. Mary works as a photographer and author, while James has followed in his dad's footsteps as a musician. Beatrice, the youngest, is still in school and prefers to stay out of the public eye. Paul enjoys being a grandfather. And he's even written children's books inspired by his time with them. Despite losing Linda to cancer in 1998 and facing other challenges, Paul has stayed close to his family. He often says they've helped him through tough times, and he values the unique bond he has with each of his kids. Now that they're adults, Paul feels they guide him as much as he once guided them. At this stage in life, Paul is happy. His marriage to Nancy has brought him peace and joy. They share many interests, including art and philanthropy, and spend quality time together. Paul also stays active with his music, which he says brings him energy and purpose. He's thankful for everything he's experienced, the good and the bad, and focuses on enjoying the present. Valentine's Day is special for Paul and Nancy. In 2023, Paul marked the occasion with a surprise concert, showing how much he values both his fans and his relationship. The song My Valentine, which Paul wrote for Nancy, is a testament to their love. Whether it's a big gesture like a concert or a quiet dinner together, they always make time to celebrate each other. Paul McCartney's life is a mix of love, family, and music. His journey shows how resilience and creativity can keep you thriving, no matter your age. From his timeless songs to his strong family bonds, Paul continues to inspire the world, living proof that it's never too late to find happiness and meaning.